Hello and welcome to the Pod Awakens. My name is Jordan, and with me today is Chris, as Ron is on vacation. So it's just us two here holding down the fort. How are you today, Chris?
I'm doing very well. Ron picked a really good episode to miss. I not that we'd want him to miss the episode because he's our boy, but this was a fun episode. We got a lot of good stuff to talk about.
Yeah. So we're gonna be talking part three of Ahsoka, which was called Time to Fly, directed by Steph Green, written by Dave Filoni, and it premiered August 29th, 2023 on Disney Plus. Oh yeah, let me see if I can pull up the description here. The I do this for the Marvel Pod too, and the descriptions are usually like uh you know Nick Fury discovers something, and you're like, okay, that's not much of a description, but I want to see what it's like for Ahsoka here. So, episode three description here is Hera tangles with New Republic politics while Ahsoka and Sabine Wren voyage to a distant planet. Just give us your general thoughts, then we can kind of dive into the plot afterwards. What was your general thought here of episode three?
I thought episode three was aptly titled because it time to fly. It flew by. I thought it was fun. I wanted the next episode right away. There was really cool Star Wars action. I mean, it was just the laser fighting in space. Ahsoka standing on top of the ship, stuff like that was just like I need more of this. Hiding in the forest at the end. I'm like, I need the next episode. They're gonna hunt him in the forest. I was like, dude, this is like Ron was talking about it's almost Game of Thrones like. It's very interesting, um, a very interesting environment, and I just really enjoyed the characters in this. I mean, Hu Yang cracks me up. Cracks me up. I hope I said that right. Absolutely
Yeah,
cracks me up. David Tennant's voicing of him is hilarious, and I
yeah,
just I just loved this episode. It was what I'm hoping I get more of.
yeah. I agree. I really enjoyed this episode. Hu Yang is my favorite character, I think, so far in the show. He's been brilliant, brilliantly portrayed too. But yeah, I mean, this episode moves pretty quickly here. Um, it's only 35 ish minutes before credits roll. And I think that's fine. I see people kind of complain about the runtime. This is only 7 minutes shorter than like a network TV show. Because we don't get commercials here. So I, for me, I think that's fine. I don't ever want an episode to just be padded out,
Hmm.
like we've seen in shows like The Flash and Arrow and stuff, right? Where they have to pad out episodes or pad out moments and add add C plots into the show just because they have an exact target they need to hit 42 minutes and so many seconds they have to
Hmm.
hit each week. If Dave Filoni writes this episode and this is as long as it takes and they cut anything that's not worthy of being on the screen, I'm fine with that. I don't need long episodes. I think people have started to equate long episodes with quality. And I'll tell you, I think why. I think it's because when we moved to streaming, so many shows started going above the 42 minutes, right? You get like House of
Hmm.
Cards, 55 minutes, and Orange is the New Black, right? And all of these Game of Thrones, all of these shows started to have really high episode minutes, and I think what that equated to is people equating the quality of those series to the runtime, for some reason, right? Because they're like, oh, we're unshackled by cable TV now that we can have 55 minutes and that's all, that's what we need. But if you don't need 55 minutes, I don't think you should have it. So
I
for
agree.
me, I think this has been fine. I'm fine with one episode drops. At the end of this episode, I felt satisfied. Like I wasn't like you said, I did want the next one, but I wasn't like a disappointed. That's it. type of thing
No,
because
I want the next one. That's really enjoyable to me when I'm like, oh, I'm jonesing for it. You know what I did? I watched it, and then I watched the third episode of Andor because I'm catching up on that from behind. And I was like, okay. Then at that point, I was kind of Star Wars satiated, and I caught up with my Adventures of Superman. I went to bed,
Mhm.
but I had a lot of fun with Ahsoka. I thought it was really good. I'm a writer, and I believe in word economy. And I believe what the story should never, or a blog post or anything, should never have a exact limit. It should whatever, empty all your bullets, tell the story you want to tell, and don't waste any words. So I don't think there was any wasted anything in this. I thought it was really succinct to the point, and I didn't feel like I was lacking anything. I didn't think adding 10 minutes would change how I felt about this episode.
Same. I mean, to be honest, I think what you're gonna find, I think Filoni may have said this somewhere, sometime. I'm not sure. It may have not have been about this show, but I think what you'll find is the episodes that have a lot of action are going to be on the shorter end. The episodes that are going to probably have more plot ramifications and stuff is probably going to be on the longer end. More character moments that you can have, more. I mean, you'll still get some action in those too, but I think like this one had a lot of action with the space battle, right? So that made it, I feel like, uh, made it shorter because they were like, oh, we have this huge set piece, we're going to hit this thing. And, you know, there's not a lot of like, uh, talking, and I think dialogue scenes can make episodes longer. You can always just throw in a
Hmm.
dialogue scene and pad the episode out if you want.
But
But
isn't that what you want in Star Wars? Like you need a certain amount of that in Star Wars. That's quintessential Star Wars stuff in that, the ship, I actually like that it was like is that a hyperspace ring kind of thing? It was
yeah,
like it almost had a oh god, what is the bad guy building now kind of vibe, which is pretty much base level Star Wars stuff. So
no, yeah,
I really enjoyed it.
I like the action. I was kind of arguing with people back and forth or debating, I guess you would say, like, uh, because I know there's a lot of Andor fanboys. I love Andor as well, but not every show has to be Andor when it comes to Star Wars. And what I mean by that is Andor
Mhm.
will have those character moments. It's going to not have as much action. It's going to be very, like I call it, prestige television Star Wars, right?
And I'm
But
there for that,
sometimes,
but I'm
yeah,
also there for this.
exactly. Sometimes I don't want to watch Mad Men. Sometimes I want to watch stuff blow up. And that's what this show does. But we also do get those character moments. I think when people say we haven't even had character moments, I'm looking
Harris
at
had character moments.
Hera's had some, but even
Sabine
Ahsoka
is
has
yeah.
growth in this when she lets
Hmm.
Sabine do the decisions in this space battle, right?
Yeah. What do you need? What do you need?
Yes.
And that was a great moment in this episode because it was like, dude, work as a team, communicate with each other, basic human stuff, just in Star Wars setting. I thought that was fantastic, and I also thought Ahsoka's mentorship with the cup and to start small. I thought that was a really good moment because it's like that is again just real life stuff. Whether you have the Force or not, starting small and tackling a manageable step is such a huge part of life. So that's storytelling goodness to me. I want more of that, and I think the character development has been great. Sabine is basically been told she's worthless as a Jedi. She has no
Yep.
force, almost no connection to the Force. She's the worst candidate, according to Hugh Yang, that they could have ever picked. And you don't tell me you can't tell me that's not character development because there's going to be a moment where she does something badass and you're like, I feel good for her.
Yeah. 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 I agree with that. And I think, like you said, with Ahsoka and what we were talking about with Ahsoka, the what do you need? Ahsoka was trying to do it wrong, right? She was using a deathly battle as another level of training where she's like, just focus to Sabine and like, kind of telling her to use the force of like, don't go where they are, go where they're going to be, feel where they're going to be. And
Hmm.
Sabine's, I'm sure, is rightly in her mind, like, I don't have time for that. These things are on us. And I think Sabine says, like, there will be no future if I don't get these things.
That parallel is so to Luke in A New Hope.
Yeah, she even
is just
says,
so
like, "I
strong.
got one," like, just like Luke
Uh,
did.
it's so strong to the parallel to Luke because was impatient, wanted to go, go, go. He didn't. He thought the whole training thing was stupid. He was frustrated quickly. I mean, if we're gonna let Luke have that hero's journey arc, we need to let Sabine have that hero's journey arc. The only difference here is that it's not a character from the original trilogy and it's a woman. I mean, if you cannot deal with that, I just get out of the Star Wars fandom, in my opinion. But the parallel was great. I thought I got no New Hope vibes from this. It was really good.
Well, I think again, I think this kind of comes down to streaming. Like, I feel like every complaint I see about any streaming series, not just Star Wars, not just Marvel, almost any
Hmm.
show that is streaming, is people say, and this is just, I think we've even seen it with non-streaming stuff lately, but where people just use the word filler, right? They say like, this is a filler episode. I saw somebody call this a filler episode. I don't know how this would be considered filler at
Okay,
all.
so wait a second. We were just talking before the show about how people were complaining that it was too slow and too much exposition.
Hmm.
Then we get action with a lot of awesome moments, character moments, in my opinion, and that's filler. They need to make up their mind. They can choose one, they can't have it both ways. You
Well,
can have your cake and eat it too.
I don't even know how you could call this filler right now when we don't know where the story ends. I feel like you can only make that call at the end of a season and be like, did we need
Hmm.
that? Did we not need it?
Look,
So,
they're moving the story forward. They are not at the same point at the beginning of this episode and the end of this
right,
episode.
we're not even halfway
So
through the season.
right, I mean, is it 8 episodes?
8. Yeah. So we're
Yeah,
next week
this
is
is third
halfway.
way through. So next week that is the halfway point. I mean, people just need to settle down and enjoy the ride. One of the things I think the internet has ruined is the ability to just see what happens,
Yes.
the ability to be invested along for the ride. I think mature Star Wars fans and fans of fiction in general are in it for the storytelling, and I really want strong storytelling. So if they have these kind of complaints, it just goes to show you can't please anybody. Just make quality stuff. And you know what? If the director is all in, the actors and the writers are all in, and they kind of bring it together, who cares what anybody says because they did what they thought. That's creative freedom right there. So that's beautiful.
And I'll say this too. I was around when Rebels was airing, and I remember people calling certain episodes of Rebels filler. And then guess what? By the finale, it had all tied together. So
Hmm.
in that sense, like, we'll talk about some of that stuff this episode, because when they're on that planet and you see the space whales, which are called purgils, they
Hmm.
were prevalent in an episode of Rebels, like in, I forget what season, 2 or 3, I think. They came all the
And
way.
they were even talking about the migrational patterns and how it was
Mhm.
related to the technology that they were at. And that was just a nugget I got in this episode.
Yeah. Well, the Purgils, that episode when it first came out in Rebels was kind of derided. I remember people saying filler and stuff, but in the finale of Rebels, the Purgils came back, and actually that has been tied into this show, which is that is how Ezra and Thrawn have disappeared. So I want to explain this for people that haven't seen Rebels. At the Battle of Lothal, where there was Thrawn leading the Empire versus the clan of rebels we had, which included Hera, Sabine, uh, Ezra, and Zeb and Chopper. Well, one of the things that he did is he put out a call for the Purgils to help him because he had bonded with these creatures in another episode. So when they did come, they kind of crashed into the ship that he was in with Thrawn, and the Purgils can travel via hyperspace. And they took Thrawn and Ezra and the ship that they were on, and they disappeared through hyperspace, and they're gone. So that is kind of a key thing in this, where they see the Purgils and how Sabine said she hasn't seen them since the day Ezra disappeared. It's because he used them in the Battle of Lothal. So what this is kind of showing too is they're getting closer, right? It's almost like they're so close they can taste it type of thing. They know if maybe they can use these Purgils, or the fact that they already have that pathway through the migration, that they can use the hyperspace ring to get to Thrawn and Ezra. So that is kind of the big thing in this episode that is briefly explained, and I think they'll explain it more for people that didn't catch that. But I just wanted to explain it for people that haven't seen Rebels, that
Me.
yeah, and any listener that hasn't seen Rebels, that this is kind of a big deal. These whales are not just like random whales. These are something that was key to the end of Rebel season 4 and the disappearance of the two people we're looking for. So hopefully that clears some things up for some people.
Help me. Any exposition I can get, I'm down for. Plus, again, I told everyone the last time, I'm here to learn more about Star Wars through these series. I'm excited about that. It's a new world for me. Not a new world. I mean, I've been into Star Wars, but a lot of this stuff is new to me, and it's exciting. So that, and if you're listening to this and you're like, oh God, this guy doesn't know what he's talking about, he hasn't been along for the ride. Well, I'm having fun, and that's what it's all about.
Yes, that is all it's about, really. So we get let's talk about, before we kind of go back into the Eye of Sion stuff and all that. Let's talk about the political aspect, which I think is a pretty interesting aspect of Star Wars. And we get Hera, who's trying to talk to this committee, um, with the Chancellor, who's Mon Mothma, and other senators, and she's trying to get permission for them to send Republic forces to Cetos, which is the planet where the Eye of Sion is currently based. Now, Mon Mothma does support them, but it seems like the rest of the senators don't. And I'm curious to know why they don't, right? But I also want to point out here, the one senator that is the most against them is Senator Ziono, right? And this is the dad of a character in another animated series called Star Wars Resistance, which was Kaz Ziono. This is his dad here, who is a senator. He never really got along with his father, if I remember Resistance correctly. I only saw a couple episodes of it because it's not as good as the other ones, but I do want to sit down and watch it. But yeah, so I just think it's cool that we even get like this little, senator of is a tie-in to another animated series character. Just Resistance takes place though between I think episode 7 and 8. Or maybe the first episode is before 7. The first season might be before 7. 6 months before The Force Awakens, and it ends, I think, between 7 and 8 or something. So there you go. That's what Resistance is. It only lasted for 2 seasons and 40 episodes. But yeah, so that senator is the one most adamantly against it. I don't know if we really know why. I'm curious to get your take on this, because it seems like they just don't want to believe it because they don't want to deal with it, right? Like they've just won. This show takes place like 5 years after Return of the Jedi or so. They just won. They don't believe this stuff is coming true, and they just don't want to deal with it, because why would you want to deal with it, right? Like, you don't want to believe it because you finally took down the Emperor, and you're probably thinking, if the Emperor and Darth Vader are dead, we don't really have much to worry about.
Yeah, that's an interesting point. It's kind of like a guy who doesn't want to go to the doctor because he doesn't want to know how sick he is. It's kind of like that. I think this is an interesting thing because I just don't understand why you would be so against it. Why you would be so against exploring the idea of it? Because it feels like due diligence. Like I'm obviously on the side of Hera here. It's due diligence. She's been in a war most of her life. She knows. We got to cross our T's and dot our I's and make sure this isn't a problem. And I feel like the senators are on the side of history that if you're wrong, it's going to look really bad.
But you're right. What does it hurt to just send somebody out there and see if there's actually anything there? Um, I love Hera in this scene, by the way, when she just puts him in his place and says, "Did you fight in the war?" And then he's like
That
quiet, and she's like, "Oh, you just sat around and waited to see who would come out on top." Like, I just love.
was a great
Oh
line.
man, I was like, "Oh snap!" Like, man, that was such a good snapback by Hera, because it's true. Hera's been fighting this fight since like since before episode 4, like she's been in this fight for a long time. um and she's lost people in this fight. Her husband Kanan is dead, and we do see her son here as well, Jason. This was a character that was briefly in the finale of Rebels. That is to hint that she was pregnant at the time Kanan passed, and this is his son. So, pretty interesting to see him in live action. His big contribution in this episode is that he wants to be a Jedi. He hears that Sabine is in training.
That was really cool, and that was like a heartwarming and I like how she handled it. She's like, "I know you do, I know you do." And that was nice. It's brings out the little boy in all of us. We all wanted to be something. We all looked up to heroes, and it's really cool because she's like, "Oh, Sabine's doing this. This is great." I love the boyish enthusiasm, and I love the way that she handled it because she didn't squash that at all.
Yeah, I would just say probably keep him away from Luke at this point, because we don't know we don't know if he's gonna survive that, if he goes with Luke, from the Last Jedi anyway. But
So you're saying he's got an interesting track record?
yeah, I would probably be a little cautious, but at this point, I guess they don't know any better. But I do wonder. I would assume he is force sensitive because he is, the related to a Jedi who was Kanan. So I think he can be an actual Jedi at some point. I don't know if that's what they're building to in this series at all, or if this is
He's
something
a
down
little
the
young
road.
for that to be building. Yeah,
Yeah,
I mean,
I think
maybe
it's a little
if
bit down the road.
how many seasons do you think the show will get? Because if it gets a few seasons, baby.
I would think maybe 2 at most. Because what I would think here is that we're going to get this season, because this is actually all building up to a movie done by Dave Filoni. Um, so I would assume we get this season 4 of The Mandalorian, and then maybe a season 2 of Ahsoka before we lead into the movie. But I mean, that all hinges on the on the strikes and stuff. Um,
Hmm.
where we not sure on that. Hold on, my screen just froze. Can you hear me at least?
I can hear
Okay.
you. So your mouth did a weird thing where it's like a Godzilla movie,
Oh, okay.
like back in the day. So it's like the words are like catching up. Like the words are there, but the mouth is catching up to the
It
words.
froze while I was trying to input this photo here that I'm trying to put in. So this is Jason Sindola in the show and Jason Sindola in Rebels. So if you're watching the YouTube video here, on the left is him in Rebels, on the right is in Ahsoka here.
That's pretty accurate casting. I don't know that it matters with a kid actor, but that's pretty accurate casting.
Yeah, I mean, he looks. I mean, his hair is not as green, I don't think, and that's probably just realism. I don't think you can probably make it that green, but uh,
Tell
pretty
Joker that.
true. I guess depends on which Joker. This is like Heath Ledger Joker green.
Yeah,
Um,
I was just being a smartass.
yeah, so we get some resistance there with the request. You know, Mon Mothma says she's going to talk to them for Hera, and we get the hologram message from Hera, pretty much telling Sabine and Ahsoka that we're kind of grounded. Not grounded like like a child, but grounded as in like can't fly, right? Like they're not going to be able to come join Ahsoka on this because of they didn't get approval, and she's part of the military, so she can't really probably disobey orders. Yeah, so that's kind of like the big thing on Hera's side of the story. The rest of it kind of falls into the training, right? Which you alluded to earlier, where we kind of get a long training sequence at the beginning here of Ahsoka teaching Sabine almost the ways of Luke, right? And what I mean by that is when Luke was being trained, him having the blast shield covering his face, and now he was using a remote droid shooting stuff at him. But this was more focus about not even that. Like Ahsoka's just being like quiet, real quiet, and able to sneak up on Sabine. And Sabine kind of has, like you said, that same reaction of Luke from Episode 4. Like I can't see
Hmm.
anything, kind of like Luke does. And Obi-Wan's like, you just got to feel the Force. But as we heard from Hu Yang before, right? Sabine is not very Force adept. She has the least amount of Force abilities of any student ever trained in Jedi history. Uh, so I don't know. I think we will see Sabine use the Force at some point, but I think a lot of it is almost like the yips, right? Like a
Hmm.
performance issue where she's in her head with all of this pressure.
Well, she's also being told she can't do it, and it's becoming a self-fulfilling prophecy. I'm a big believer of the idea that if you give yourself a narrative that is a negative narrative, it has so much power over your ability to do it. So, really, she's got to overcome that and convince herself through action that it's not true. But what's really exciting to me about that training sequence is Ahsoka in it was kind of like it had like this League of Assassins kind of vibe to it. Be like, I'm in the shadows. Where am I? Feel your surroundings. I was like, all right, Raish. But it was, it was a really fun sequence, and Hu Yang really was the comedic relief in that. It was fantastic. I can't imagine that scene without him, and I loved especially Hu Yang when he's like, complete. What did I miss? Um, and I was like, dude, that was so funny. Like we almost died twice. Like
And he says, "What, like pretty
Hu
par
Yang
for
was
the
perfect.
course or something?"
Yeah.
Same thing when like they land in the woods and he's like, "I gotta run this data," and Ahsoka's like, "We gotta power you down." He's like, "No," and she's like, "It's proper Jedi protocol." He's like, "You're right," and then gets powered down. He's so by the book, right? He is
Yeah.
somebody that wants to follow it completely. Ahsoka is still always at this. She said it so many times in these first 3 episodes, like she's not bound by the Jedi way at this point in her life, so she's gonna do whatever. Um, yeah, so it's really interesting. I wonder, we didn't see a lot of the villains this week. We saw them in the space battle, which the Eye of Sion took out uh Ahsoka's ship, to the point where Ahsoka had to go out and buy some time while Sabine was fixing it. But really, we only saw Shin, Hot T, and Marok, the Jedi, the Inquisitor, who were there, and then they had some like extra minions that died, in their spacecrafts, but didn't really see much of the bad guys at all in this episode. I'm assuming that'll be next week. There is a scene in the trailer that shows Baylan Skull talking to Ahsoka in that little area that they were in previously with the map. So I assume that they will meet somewhere out there and have a conversation. But I kind of missed Baylan this week. I like his presence, but he was not featured, I think, at all, honestly.
You got him at the end, right? I mean,
yeah, the very end when he just like, yeah, go find him. Like, I feel like that's all he did.
Yeah, it's basically all he did. It was a slow work day for him. he had to go to Rite Aid and get a couple of prescriptions. He's like, I'll be right back.
Yeah, he's like, I got Shin covering me today, covering my shift.
Exactly. And, she did a pretty good job, but she didn't need to do that much.
I liked seeing more of her. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Well, I feel like the internet is in love with her, which is weird because I think Saban Ren, I can't talk all of a sudden. But she's the more compelling character. But apparently, the
internet loves its goth
she's
girls. That's what it is.
it really is that. It's like, why I don't quite get this one. Like, she hasn't done enough.
I think it's just
But
because she
like, she's
looks cool. I
interesting.
mean, look,
She does look. She's got a vibe.
she looks cool.
Yeah.
And so that's all it is for Star Wars fans. A lot of the times, is you look cool. Like Darth Maul. I mean, for episode 1, that's like all Darth Maul did was look cool.
Well, Ron was like, "Oh, who's this guy on the back of the Frito-Lay?" So that goes to show
if you
you.
get Shin Hati on some Frito-Lays or something, look, you might get some new viewers. Is all we're saying.
Mm-hmm. You'll definitely get some new viewers if you put Sabine on anything. Like, come on.
Yeah, I know the internet is in love with her and Hera at this point as well. I've seen a lot of memes about both of them.
The internet is well satiated. The internet has plenty to talk about, and they're in it for the plot, guys. They're in it for the plot.
Okay, so we got to see Ahsoka on the ship use her lightsabers in a space battle. I thought this was pretty cool. Of course, some people had to be downers and say it's not realistic. Can I tell you something real quick?
It's the Star Wars battle.
None of Star Wars is realistic. I'm sorry.
So, what part's unrealistic? The lightsaber's
pretty unrealistic.
The Force.
I would say space fighting is pretty unrealistic.
Space lasers. I mean, unless you're Marjorie Taylor Greene, you don't believe in space lasers.
Well, also, I think it is, people like to think about the gravity of it all, right? But we've seen Jedi do huge force jumps, which is anti-gravity. We see them levitate.
But didn't she have like boots on or something? Because she had a
some
mask.
sort of, like, I think, grav boots or something.
But here's the thing that kills me about that is, you want to talk about the gravity of the situation? She's trying to distract. She's trying to keep the ship from getting shot down by distracting them by risking her life.
Yeah, and I think the scene works because it's Shin. I think if it's Baylan, the scene might be more like Baylan would be like, you know what? Just shoot the ship. She's going to fall to her death. Like, whatever. But Shin, I feel like, is at this point where she's like, I want to attack this Jedi. I want to,
Yeah, she's got something to prove to her almost.
Prove a bit. And she's like, all right, let's go at the Jedi. And it buys that time for Sabine to finish the ship repairs. Because I know I've seen some people...
But I feel like Ahsoka knew that.
Yeah,
I feel like
probably.
That was a calculated decision. And she was like, this is how it's going to go.
Yeah, I mean, she knows that I'm blanking on her name. The lady who is in the Eye of Sion. Why am I blanking? Oh, Morgan Elsbeth. She knows Morgan Elsbeth. She's met her before. She knows that they probably are telling her to take out the Jedi. So she's probably knows that that's a good distraction.
Dumb question. Is it supposed to sound like the Eye of Sauron?
I don't think so.
But it really
I mean, it
does.
could. I mean, I think Dave's a Tolkien fan, but I think Scion. If I had to come up with Scion origin, let's look that up. Scion is a Welsh name of Hebrew origin meaning Yahweh. God is gracious. So, I mean, you can look at it in that way too.
Yeah.
Yeah. Interesting.
This is very interesting. I'm always interested in the mythology that adds to our fantasy because our fantasy is just modern day mythology. So it's really interesting, like the etymological roots and stuff. I probably said that wrong. I can't talk today. Um, yeah.
But overall, yes, like Hu Yang it does his scan, and it is a hyper jump gate, which he is saying might have enough power to jump to another galaxy, which they know is what the map leads to. So they're kind of putting the pieces together on what exactly these hyperspace drives are going to and what the plan is. And they land on the planet of Cetos and they are, hiding in the woods. And we kind of just, this is where we kind of wait, right? This is where we're left to ponder on what's in the next episode. If I had to guess, I think the next episode is maybe a little confrontation between, like I said, Balin and Ahsoka. Maybe while Sabine is carrying something else out at that point. I don't know what Hera's job is going to be with her being kind of grounded by the New Republic. I'm wondering what could be done there. But I think by episode 5, we're going to get Thrawn. And then I think the last 3 episodes, I have no clue what they will do. So that's kind of what my guide is here. I think episode 4 might be more setup about to use this Eye of Sion. And I think episode 5 might be where they go to the eye through the Eye of Sion. And I just wonder, is there a way for Ahsoka and Sabine to kind of piggyback off of that? Maybe they use the Purgils to get to that other spot. Or somehow they beat Elsbeth to making the jump or something. I'm kind of wondering how that might play out. But I think by the end of the 4th episode, we'll be heading to that galaxy, if I had to guess.
That sounds exciting, and I really like the Purgils. They're like whales, but they're like in the air. That's cool.
Yeah, it's pretty cool. I like them too. Very interesting on how they depict them, and it was great to see them in live action. We actually saw the Purgils in The Mandalorian briefly, really briefly, teased them. And I'm going to share this picture. It's not a spoiler, really isn't. So if anybody was worried about this being a spoiler, let me try to find the best way to open this up. Okay. So in The Mandalorian season 3, I think it was the premiere. This is the Mandalorian ship in the middle here, and you can see the whales around them going through hyperspace. These little dark outlines and stuff. So
Yeah, you would almost have to know they were there to know they were there.
So a lot of fans that had seen Rebels beforehand and stuff already knew, like, oh yeah, these are here. But it also adds into it, like if you are only watching the live action shows and you watch Mando and then you watch this, you're like, oh, maybe I've seen those before. Or you watch this and now you rewatch Mando and you're like, oh, look at that hint there, right? Like that's what I find very interesting and really cool. The way that they're able to do this every so often is like layer in these hints and stuff.
It makes the world feel more lived in and real.
Yeah, it does.
Not that anything's realistic. I know we just had that conversation, but
Yeah, but I mean,
you making this world
you
feel
need to
real.
feel. Yes, you need to feel that the world is real and that the people in it are real. But I don't need the laws of the world to be real. You know, like
So Isaac Newton does not have to be right about the Star Wars
exactly,
galaxy.
exactly. Like I saw recently,
The great Jedi,
I saw
Isaac
Carl
Newton.
Sagan, right? A clip of Carl Sagan
Hmm.
being on TV, like right around the time A New Hope came out, and he was really like saying, "Oh, there would not be any humans in space. Like, it only humans would be able to be from Earth or whatever." And I was like, "That's fine. Like, I don't need humans to like I don't need that part to be realistic. You know, like
That's kind of like the point, and then they just go over it.
yeah, yeah, yeah."
It's
He said
like
that the humans only
it's
exist on this planet because of the set of circumstances of the evolution, and you can't mimic those perfectly in another spot. So,
and Yoda doesn't exist in the real world either. But guess what? Star Wars is fun. Like, give me a break. Like the idea that we can't enjoy fantasy is because it's not scientifically realistic. So Superman flying is a real problem because aliens wouldn't look like us, and that's a can of worms you don't need to open, no matter what fantasy you're in.
there you go. Yeah, it's the same complaints about Superman at that point then.
Uh,
But yeah,
hmm.
so I don't mind that.
Oh, he gets his powers from the sun. Oh
Yeah, you
no!
know what? Also, there logistically has to be humans for them to film stuff without everybody being an alien. And when you film stuff with humans in it, a lot of the times it makes us care about them more, right? Like if we can see ourselves in the world, we're going to care about those characters more. Um Even characters like Ahsoka and Sabine, and well, Sabine is human, but Ahsoka and like Hera that are not human, but they're humanoid, we're still able to see enough of the features to be like we can relate, right?
We relate to eye
Yes,
contact,
yeah.
faces, acting, and one of, like, for example, Disney made the live action Lion King with like CGI
Hmm.
lions, and there was no facial expressions in the movie, and it felt a lot of people said it lacked heart. If you wanted something like that, I mean, I don't know what to tell you. It's the same reason that like white lens Batman eyes don't work in live action because you see what the actors do with their eyes in the cowl. So I think expressive actors sounds a lot better than having nothing but monsters and
Right.
creatures and Wookiees and Ewoks. And even Wookiees and Ewoks are anamorphized. Like they're humanoid a little bit. Like Chewie, has the same face structure as a human basically, even though he's like a bear dog kind of thing.
Yeah. And his roar is like a mix of other animals that we hear and we can relate to, and that
Right. Like it's like space animals. That's cool. Like our world should be reflected in Star Wars because everything should be reflected in Star Wars because the galaxy is wide and vast. I like imagine having a space opera in which there is nothing cool in
yeah, yeah.
space. It's like, oh, that's a really bright star. Cool, man.
So next we have an episode directed by Peter Ramsey. He also co-directed Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse. He directed an episode of season 3 of The Mandalorian. So he's kind of getting in here now to direct the next episode, which is also written by Dave Filoni. I believe he wrote them all. Just any guesses or what you want to see in the next episode, or certain characters you want to see more of in the next episode? Like for me, I really want to see Balin more. So, is there anything you really
Hmm.
want to see?
I, I want to see Balin more. I want to see more of Sabine having to make progress quickly in the moment, and that mentorship that Ahsoka has with her. I like that stuff, and I really want to see like this almost game of like hide and go seek in the woods. That sounds really fun. But I'm down for the ride. I keep saying I'm down for the ride. I want to see where they go. I want them to surprise me. I honestly would like nothing more than to have no clue and not have seen that coming and have the internet going, oh my God, can you believe they did that? That's the kind of stuff I want to see because that's where the fun is, in my opinion. So I'm just hoping they surprise me, and I hope the scavenger hunt for them is interesting.
I also really liked that scene with the cup. Um, it really shows how inept she's been at this point, right? Where she can't even move a cup. We've seen Luke lift an X-wing. We've seen Yoda lift an X-wing and stuff. And
Hmm.
right now, we have Sabine who can't even move a cup to her. And I like when she says like next time, and then it just cuts to the picture of the cup, like almost like a reaction shot from the cup. I kind of really like that.
Yeah, the cup's like,
Yeah.
ha, I didn't go anywhere. I like that too. I thought that was cute. And I'll tell you this right now, Sabine's going to have a big moment at some point. And it might not be a Luke-sized moment,
Yes.
but she's going to have a big moment in this where she does something and she gains confidence. And that little thing of confidence might look like nothing to another character, is going to propel that character a lot.
Exactly. I guess we can start wrapping up this episode. We went longer than the episode actually did, so I think we're in a good range there. A lot of it was action stuff that we can't really, I don't think, dive into too much. But uh, yeah. So next week we'll have episode 4, which we'll dive into. I want to just thank everyone who listened and watched along with us. This is Ahsoka parts 1 and 2 was one of the highest listened to episodes of our podcast on the Podawakens. So really smashed it out of the park with that. So thank you all. If you want to send us any feedback or theories or anything, at Podawakens on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram. We're on TikTok now as well, where we're putting up some clips and stuff. But yeah, so just follow us in all of those places, and we'll catch you next time.